This is Law Gaming. Today we're back with another Battle Nations suggestion video. Today's topic is going to be units. In this case, units that are already in the game in one form or another that I think are cool and could maybe be added by Madrona Games once they've got the game up and running. So the first one is going to be a little obvious. We're going to be talking about the Raider Outcast. Now the Raider Outcast obviously is an enemy unit. You can see here. The enemy version, at least at this level, level 25, has 110 HP, does 63 to 77 damage with a 55% crit against soldiers. Pretty standard sniper unit. It's kind of surprising that it never was implemented as a playable unit in the game. I think it's probably one of the coolest Raider units. It reminds me a lot of the Tusken Raiders from Star Wars with the giant rifles that they had. Which I think all the Raiders kind of took inspiration from, Dune and Star Wars like that. But I think they would be a really cool addition to the game. And if you're looking at maybe new Raider units, I think the Raider Outcast would be pretty obvious as something that could add a lot of flavor to the Raider, playable Raider units, that most of which aren't that good besides like the Raider Cannoneer. So yeah, maybe it could occupy a space between the marksman, maybe a bit better than the sniper, but cost a lot more skulls. I could see that being a fairly balanced in the mid game. Nothing crazy though. Maybe like something around the stats of an assassinator, but maybe with a lower crit rate or longer reload times. Something like that would be pretty cool. Unit is going to be one that obviously we can't see in game yet, but I'll show a picture up on the screen, and that is the Silverwolf Enforcer. Now, the Silverwolf Enforcer is a very cool unit. It's got like an AK-looking rifle, and it actually already was a playable unit in the original Battle Nations, but for whatever reason, whether it was balancing or maybe they wanted just some FOMO for players at the time, they removed the Silverwolf Enforcer from the Mercenary Vault, so people that already had it could have it, but it was basically limited to those whoever managed to get to that level at that point in time. I never got to have a Mercenary Enforcer because it was removed before I got to like the level 40s and 50s when you could build Silverwolf units, and so I always kind of really wanted one. So I'd like to see that. And another unit that they had in the game but removed in the same way, it was the Silverwolf Artillery, which also had pretty good stats. It looks just like the Ares Artillery, but it's obviously way better. Both units really cool. I see them being probably the easiest two units that could be added by Madrona Games at this point in time, because they already exist, I think, in the game's files as playable player units. They just need to be re-added to the Mercenary Vault once we get to that point in time. The next unit I'd like to see is another Silverwolf unit that never was playable, but it's an enemy unit you face in the 40s and 50s, and that is the Silverwolf Golden Eagle. Honestly, it's probably one of the coolest looking Silverwolf units that you fight up against. It's the Silverwolf Sniper, basically. It has this like bolt action scoped rifle. He's like hunched down with a big backpack on. It kind of reminds me of like, it's very like the post-apocalyptic. It looks like something out of like a post-apocalyptic game. I think it would be just cool to have something like that. And its stats, it could be, probably a little expensive, I could imagine. But its stats could be more so balanced for the 40s and 50s. And obviously, sniper units get a little bit more obsolete around then. But I think just having a sniper unit would be fun. You got to give them stats that make them useful, but like obviously you don't want them overpowered to overshadow some of the other sniper units. But I think it could be balanced with them having high merit requirements or high skull requirements if we're talking about the Raider Outcast. And the final Silverwolf unit I would like to see as a player unit is the Silverwolf Defender. The Silverwolf Defender is honestly another kind of cool unit. He has this, he's holding a car door and he uses a pistol. He ducks around and shoots. It's always a fun unit to watch. I like the animations that they use for it. And I think it could also just be a player unit. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. And honestly, I could see it being maybe a little bit of kind of just like a maybe a fun unit. You wouldn't need to really get a lot of use out of it. It probably would need to have some pretty good stats to be useful in the 40s and 50s when you already have super tanks and heavier tanks, and then eventually like mega tanks. But I could see it maybe just being a fun unit to be in the game for the heck of it. You don't need a meta purpose for every single unit in the game, but just something I would personally like to see just for fun. So what do you think? Of those 5 units, what would you like to see all 5 of those added? There's plenty of other Silverwolf units that were never made into playable units one way or another that probably you could look at. I don't think you need to do every single last one because there's a lot of them, and some of them aren't. We already have some that aren't even that useful to begin with, but those 5 I think would be cool just to have more content and to have more fun to play with the game. Even if they're not meta or all that useful in the grand scheme of the game. But tell me what you think. Are there any other units in the game that I'm missing? Any other enemy units that you'd like to see made into playable units or things of that nature? Leave them in the comment section below and make sure to subscribe and leave a like. Thank you.